Hello, everyone. Does your semester feel like this all of a sudden? A friend of mine, my sister sent this from a friend who's a teacher. And so this has been circulating on the web. I'm sure it's in the public domain by now. But this is kind of what it feels like to take a class that's been, face to face and all of a sudden put it online. Hi, I'm Rosanna Hassoun, and I'm a professor. I'm a tenure-track professor at a Midwestern university, and we've been asked to put everything online for the rest of the semester. So I kind of know how this feels. Now, I've taught classes online and face-to-face and even hybrid classes, but I've never started face-to-face and then had to convert to an online class before. So what I want to do is do an outline of some of the basic things that I do. Hopefully it will be helpful, and we can get started. So essentially, when we talk about what we're going to do, I start to look at my syllabus. And for K through 12 teachers, this looks a lot like lesson plans in miniature. So we have the titles of our topics and assignments inside the syllabus, and I always do it in weeks. Some professors just have it the day and the date of when this happens. I also put it in weeks. This helps because then you can have weekly modules in your course in your course software. So I've used course software. I've used Angel, D2L, Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard. Just dozens of these different ones in different places. As an adjunct, it was like every place had a new piece of courseware, and I had to learn to put materials up in courseware. So this is usually they have files on the side where you can put your files, and most often you have to upload your files first into files, and then what you can do is once you upload them into files, then you can take them and put them in modules and create your weekly modules and put materials in the modules. So that's important. So that was the one I had some modules actually in most of my classes, or I had files. Now, if you only use straight files and you don't put them in modules, I highly recommend that you number your files. So I start numbering my files. 00 is my syllabus all the time. 00 syllabus, and I put that up. So week 1, my file is 01 and maybe 01A, and so then I go on and I use that, so that I use numerics in front of every file to keep them in order. Otherwise, most of these course software, what they try to do is put it in some sort of alphabetic order, and sometimes it's not the way you want it, and it's very hard to keep it in order. So if you're going to just use straight files, then number them. Otherwise, I highly recommend weekly modules, and I'll show you some reasons why. Now, let's say you're a K through 12 teacher, or you're a professor, and your university for some reason doesn't have. It's a small university, a small community college, doesn't have courseware. There's very few community colleges and universities that doesn't have it, but maybe you're a K through 12 professor or teacher that doesn't have courseware. I can tell you that in a pinch, Blackboard, and I don't get paid for this. This is not a paid endorsement, and it's free, so I don't make any money off of it. For free, you can set up a demonstration course in Blackboard. And so if you have 1 or 2 of these, I don't know how many there's a limit to how many courses you can set up with them, but I've used it in a pinch. There was a time when I also use Articulate 360, and there was a time when it wouldn't work with Canvas. So because of that, I had to use Blackboard. So at https://blackboard.coursesites.com, you can put up at least one free course in modules, in files, in everything that you need, and you can try out Blackboard. So that's the purpose of it. So that will work. So that in a pinch. Also, there are all sorts of iPad apps, for example, and I don't know for other platforms, but I assume there are. There are iOS and other apps that allow you to put materials up. There's an app called Explain Everything. So you can write and you can record at the same time. Many of them are paid, so you have to have a yearly subscription then. or monthly or yearly. And so that comes out of your pocket if your university or school doesn't have that. So I've tried to avoid that if I can, but that's another alternative if you need to do that. So then, besides looking at my syllabus, the other thing that I have to do is redesign my course to some degree. And so that means that I have to look at how, usually almost every professor or teacher students want to know what their grades are going to be at the end of the semester, so you have to set this up. Well, I had to change a great number of things. This is for my sociology of medicine class. So, exams, okay, they're all going to be online now. And so there's a quizzes and exams go on the same thing. It's usually called quizzes, and you can set them up online. I'll talk more about online exams later. For my class, I had to redo their final project. Their final project was service learning in Flint, Michigan, and they were going to go and deliver water to people who were shut in, and they were going to do some research. They had gone through IRB. They were ready to do it. We were going to showcase it at the university research, it's undergraduate research showcase that happens every semester, and they were so excited about doing real research. And hopefully, I'm working on a longitudinal study. That had to be scrapped. You can't buy water in pallets. Our community, we can't go into the elder care anymore, and my students can't travel, and we're all virtual. So I had to totally redesign a new final project. So the question is, what am I going to do in a pinch? That was a big project. Well, I have switched it to a final paper, and I've changed the how many points it's worth, and I've changed a little bit. Discussions are worth more now, homework less, and I basically moved the points around. I always put at the bottom of my syllabus that I have the right as a professor to change this, and it's the student's responsibility to keep up with any changes in the syllabus. That has helped me immensely. When students said, "Oh, you changed it." Yes, I did, and it's your responsibility to keep up with the changes. But I make them aware of the fact that I've changed the syllabus, and they know why. So their final project now is a paper. And what are they going to do it on? Well, this is a sociology of medicine class, so we're going to look at the social factors that are involved with the COVID virus and the spread of the virus. What else would you do? I want them to engage with something that's important in their lives right now. It's not going to be as meaningful perhaps as service learning, but it still is something that will engage my students. So that's important. So that's the final project that's done. Their homework, they still have homework. They have to now, Canvas is our course software. They actually had an app for an iPad where I can grade in the iPad, but it's better if they turn in their homework in PDF format. So they have to have a word processing, usually Word, and they can file save as a PDF file so that nobody can mess with it or whatever, and I can grade and I can actually write on my iPad. I can write. I have an iPad Pro. I can write right on the papers. And then I don't have to mess with typing in comments. There's also a voice option, so I can just hit a little button and put a comment back to them. The feedback is voice. I haven't done a lot of that, but now I'm going to experiment with that. So that's how grading happens with the homework, and they just have to. It's like attaching a file. So they have a little thing that tells them when the assignment is due, the homework assignment is due. I have a description of the homework that's required in there. It has a date, and they just attach it just like they would an email attachment, and it goes in and they can see that it's there. And so then I can grade in that in on my iPad, so that saves me time. The grade books are online now. So at the end of the semester, when you teach online, you've graded everything except maybe their final project, so it's all online. They know what their grades are throughout the semester, and it's a little bit easier for calculating final grades. I oftentimes though don't trust the course software, so I have an ability to download their grades into an Excel file, and then I can calculate their final grades in Excel. So that makes it easier. So that's their homework. Discussions. Now, discussions online are really important, I believe, and that was what was recommended by the Michigan Virtual University and also by my own university, Saginaw Valley State University, that when you put course, when you put materials online, students, you don't just want to tell them, here, read this or do that. You want them to engage in some way, because one of the problems with online teaching is that you have a higher dropout rate. So in order to solve that, you want them to feel like they're in this together. You want them to respond to one another as they would, in a real class, responding to each other. So a threaded discussion is important. So what I do is I have one for 1 to 3 questions, depending on whether I'm teaching an undergraduate or graduate course. So with my graduate students in my environmental health class, in public health, they have 2 to 3 questions. They post the main post. In Canvas, you can turn off the ability for them to see anyone else's posts until after they've posted, so that there's no copying and pasting. Ooh, I touched my face. Isn't that terrible? So there's no copying and pasting from each other, and that helps. Now, in addition to the requirement is not just that they have a main post, but they have to react to, for graduate students, they have to react to 2 other students. And for my undergraduates, they have like 1 or 2 questions, and they have to post a reaction to someone else's post. So it engages them with each other. They learn each other's names. They respond personally. But your syllabus or some other information online has to tell them, you have to have netiquette now. And netiquette means politeness online. It means professionalism. It means you can disagree with me as a professor or with another student, but you cannot be personal about your attacks. And you have to support your ideas with facts. And I have requirements about where they get the facts, what sources they use in order to support, their main ideas. So I have requirements on how many references they have per post. And so it's a lot more grading. In the rubric also, and it's very important, I have in their rubric a few points, a couple of points for professionalism and etiquette. So they know that they'll get points off if they violate this. And I think that's one of the most important things that has happened. I've had in the past students attack each other, and I don't want that to happen anymore. So that really fixes that. When you have the threaded discussions and you have the requirements for etiquette and proper professionalism, it helps. And so, but it's a lot more work. I have to tell you that grading discussions takes a great deal more time. I'm glad that I can use my iPad and write them and do them quickly that way. I can write comments and I can't write in the discussions, but I can write on papers, but I can do the good grading in the iPad with the discussions as well. So those are the general ideas. Now, when I set up every week on my classes, one thing that I always do is set up a weekly agenda. So this didn't print out very nicely, but okay, so every week I want to tell them what they have to do. Okay, so I remind them that they have videos online that they need to do. I remind them that they have to do their readings, and they have to read the chapters. They have the PowerPoints, voiceovers, and I'll talk a little bit about those momentarily. They have their quizzes. They have discussions. So I have everything that they need to do for that week is listed in their weekly agenda. And under the agenda, then in every weekly module, then I have every single thing they have to do underneath this. So this is basically a guideline. Everything else is there, but it tells them what to do with the stuff that's in the module. So that's important. Now, voiceovers. Let's talk a little bit about voiceover. So I use a Mac, and right now I'm not using the high-end Articulate. It's very expensive. So right now I'm doing it on the sly. On the cheap, I guess I should say. Not on the sly, but on the cheap. So I'm using Keynote, which is the equivalent of PowerPoint on a Mac. Now, if you go to Insert and you go to Record Audio, you'll just turn it on, and that's it. And it will ask you, do you want the whole screen or do you want just part of the screen? I just click that, and it puts it right into the PowerPoint. That's it. Into the Keynote presentation, and I can import a PowerPoint into Keynote and record it. So all the PowerPoints that I have, I just bring them into Keynote, and then I record over that. So that is essentially how I get it done. The nice thing about Keynote is that you can record slide by slide. So if I mess up on a slide, I don't like how it sounds, I said that stupid thing. Okay, let's get rid of that and voice over. So you can do that as many times as you want. You can, correct things as you go along. And then the end, I save as a movie. And so then I have a movie that I can upload in Canvas. There are some disadvantages to this. One thing is that the voiceovers for about a 20 to 22 slide presentation, which is about what I get through in most of my courses. I usually have every class period has some discussion, has a PowerPoint lecture. So that's about 500 megabytes. So if I'm right, I could be wrong in the size, but it's whatever the size. I'm not technical, but whatever it is, it's quite large. Okay, and so when you do that, I ran out of space really quickly in my course site, and I had to ask for more. 1 gig is what they gave me, and I finished that off with a couple of more PowerPoints or keynote movies. And so I can't keep asking them for more space. They're not going to give it to me. So I found a workaround. And again, for someone who's not terrifically technical, here's what I did. So I could save my files in Dropbox, and I have the premium. I pay for the premium Dropbox because that's what I use as my main storage. I don't lose things on my computer anymore. I use Dropbox. So I'm paying for, I've got 1 TB, whatever that is, large amount of it, of storage. And so I can put movies up there. I can do whatever I want. I don't know if you can get your university to pay for Dropbox, but that's what I did. Now in Dropbox, it takes a while. It can take over an hour to upload one of those movies into the Dropbox. But once it's there, there's a link, and I can have students link to it. They may have to sign up for a free account in Dropbox, but it's a free account, and then they can watch the voiceover movies all they want to, and I don't fill up all my space in my coursework. So those are the kinds of workarounds that I've done. So that's really how I set up my class. So I have at least a discussion every week. I have 1 to 2 videos every week. I have little quiz usually per week. If not for attendance, my attendance, I just have 1 question. I want to know that they're there. Even if I tell them, even if you can't finish the materials, I want you to just click the attendance quiz so that I can quickly keep track of who's there, even if they're falling behind in the coursework. I have that quiz. So those are those things. And then once in a while they have an exam, and so that's put up there. And I'm trying to, our university didn't want us to do asynchronous teaching. They wanted somewhat synchronous. So the synchronous teaching is that their exams are going to be during the usual class period, and I will be online, and if they email me, they can get a direct answer back. I've also used Zoom for my office hours, so I can Zoom, and I've been using Zoom for my graduate students who are doing research, their capstones. I meet them face to face. There are also students that I've been doing independent studies with that couldn't always get in because of the snow and the weather. So we Zoomed whenever they couldn't come in for my office hours. So now I have dedicated office hours per class. Each class has their own dedicated office hour per week, and I'm there on Zoom. And then if they want an individual one-on-one, then I can Zoom. So that's another thing, a way in which they know that I'm still here for them, and that they're not out there on their own all by themselves, and that they can still see me and talk to me. So I wish you good luck on whatever you decide to do. These are suggestions, and I hope they will help you.